Welcome to our channel, Naga Bible. If you are new here, please like, subscribe, and share the channel around. I'm excited today because this is the first video in English in this channel. This video is about God's love and two Greek words, agape and phileo. There are more words for love in Greek, but we will be talking about these two only because they are used for love in the New Testament. It is very common for preachers and teachers to teach that agape is the highest form of love. It is a special word for God's love. It is pure, divine, unconditional, and sacrificial love. While on the other hand, phileo is a brotherly, a friendly, a human kind of love. It is a lesser form of love than agape. The problem to such a teaching is that if you read the New Testament in Greek, the distinction drawn or the difference between agape and phileo is simply not true. It is a popular myth, it is a misunderstanding, and it is wrong because they are synonyms and they are used interchangeably in the New Testament. In this video, I want to show you why it is wrong or why it is inappropriate to teach that agape is a special word for God's love and it only means an unconditional, divine kind of love. People who see a difference between agape and phileo like to preach from a passage in John 21, verse 15 to 17. It is a conversation between Jesus and Peter, where Jesus is asking Peter, verse 15, "Do you love agapao me?" And Peter replied, "I love phileo you." Verse 16, "Do you love agapao me?" And Peter replied, "I love phileo you." In verse 17, Jesus changes the word and he asks, "Do you love phileo me?" And Peter was grieved and he answered, "I love phileo you." Some people get excited when they see that there are two words for love used in this passage and they try to find a Greek nugget to preach. They say that the third time Jesus changed the word from agapao to phileo, Jesus came to the level of Peter because Peter was not able to say he agapao Jesus because he recently denied Jesus. Or others will say that Peter was grieved because Jesus used phileo the third time, meaning that Jesus was doubting the love Peter has for him. But regardless of the explanation, when one sees a difference between these two and try to preach something out of it, it is simply not true because these words are synonyms, meaning different words having similar meanings. They can be used to mean the same thing. But the question still remains why Jesus used agapao and he changes to phileo. But before answering that, I would like to show you some sample of how these two words are used in the New Testament. Let us start with the Gospel of John. John chapter 3 verse 35. The Father loves agapao the Son. In John 5:20, the Father loves phileo the Son. So we see a distinction between agape and phileo. Does that mean that the Father is loving the Son sometimes with a godly love and sometimes with a humanly love? Unlikely. John 13:23, the disciple whom Jesus loved, agapao is used. But in John chapter 20 verse 2, the disciple, the one Jesus loved, phileo is used. John 11:5, Jesus loved agapao Lazarus. But in John 11:36, the same chapter, whom he, Jesus, loved, phileo him, Lazarus. Does that mean that Jesus is loving the disciple and Lazarus sometimes with a godly love and sometimes with a brotherly human love? Unlikely. If we go elsewhere, Hebrews chapter 12 verse 6, the Lord disciplines the one he loves, agapao. And talking about the same thing in Revelation chapter 3 verse 9, whom I love, phileo I discipline. In Luke chapter 11:43, the Pharisees love agapao, the most important seats. Talking about the same thing in Matthew 23 verse 6, the Pharisees love phileo, the most important seats. 1 Thessalonians chapter 4 verse 9, your love phileo for one another, and in the same verse, to love agapao one another. Now this is just a small sample, but these examples shows that both agape and phileo can mean godly love and friendly love. They are synonyms and it is hard to tell a clear distinction or difference between them. That being said, I will show more clearly that agape does not always mean godly divine love, as many people think. Agape is not always pure and godly. And here are some biblical examples. John chapter 3 verse 19. People love agapao, the darkness rather than the light. Can people have a godly love for darkness? No. John chapter 12 verse 43. The Pharisees love agapao, the praises of men. Can the Pharisees have a divine love for the praises of men? No. Luke chapter 6 verse 32. Sinners love agapao, those who love them. 2 Timothy chapter 4 verse 10. For Demas, because he loved agapao this world, has deserted me. 2 Peter chapter 2 verse 15. Balaam loved agapao, the wages of wickedness. That does not sound like a godly love, but that sounds like a greedy love. Now we'll take an example that may surprise you. In the Septuagint, which is the Greek translation of the Old Testament, the word agape is used to describe the love that leads Ammon to rape his half-sister Tamar. It is found in 2 Samuel chapter 13 verse 1 to 15. Now enough to say that agape does not always mean pure, godly, sacrificial love. It can also mean ungodly, prideful, lustful, and greedy love. Now going back to the story of Jesus and Peter, why did John use two words for love? The answer is that there are synonyms and it is a matter of style. And I will show you something that others who see a difference between agape and phileo will normally not talk about. The word agape and phileo are not the only synonyms used in this passage. And let us see. Verse 15, feed my lamb. Bosco and arnon are used. Verse 16, shepherd my sheep. Poimano and probaton. Verse 17, feed my sheep. Bosco and probaton are used again. In verse 17, Peter said, Lord, you know all things. You know that I love you. Peter says you know two times, and John uses two different words for know in Greek, that is ioda and probaton. So when you read the whole passage and consider all the synonyms used, I don't think John is trying to make a special point, a special theological point with the words he's using, but it is just a matter of style of writing. In conclusion, I have to say this, that I have nothing against agape, but it is wrong to say that agape is the highest form of love, always godly, unconditional, and sacrificial, and that it is a special word for God's love. It is also wrong to say that phileo is just a human love, a brotherly or a friendly love, and a lesser form of love than agape. We should avoid this misuse of Greek in our preaching and teaching because the distinction or the difference between them is not clear in the New Testament. God's love is amazing, sacrificial, and divine. We don't need a special word in Greek, English, or for that matter, any language to talk about it. There is nothing we can do that can make God love us more or love us less. God's love is amazing. He loves us anyway. He loved us while we were still sinners. And both agape and phileo are used for that amazing love in the New Testament. God bless us all.